This is an important part of the messaging to get people to understand the need that we have to make sure that we have an environment that we can all work in and live in the next several years, not only for our generation, but for future generations. The I Will Act on Climate Change is a message given to us from President Obama to remind us and to get us engaged in solving this issue that is affecting us. I mean, we can wish it away or we can stick our heads in the sand and say there is no such thing as climate change, but we see the real things happening. We see our wetlands and our coastal areas being affected daily, the size of a football field disappearing every hour. And ultimately, I look at it as a jobs program. You know, we have 78,000 people who depend on the tourism industry for their livelihood. This directly affects that. And if we don't do something about it, we'll all be wishing that we would have in several years.
We're honored and excited that the I Will Act on Climate campaign just rolled into New Orleans. I'd like to make a few moments of your time here to recognize a few people I see here. Most importantly, from the mayor's office, the gentleman who's in charge of the Office of Environmental Affairs, very active in our community, Charles Allen. Charles, thank you for being with us. We have a number of our other guests who are with us behind me and who will be recognized shortly. You might be wondering why is the tourism industry, me here standing along with our other members of our industry and representing Stephen Perry, are hosting this campaign and supporting action on climate change. In fact, just last week, we had another organization come through to remind everyone the importance of our coastal wetlands and the Restore Act. It's because we are all affected by climate change, including our city's tourism industry, which is, as you know, a major economic driver in our city. Tourism assets, the very thing that makes New Orleans so great, like our picturesque wetlands, our world-renowned seafood, our rich culture, our heritage, all are at risk due to the changing climate. Today we have gathered here chefs, musicians, tour guides, artists, and event planners to urge action and climate change. Not only for the sake of our industry, but also for the fact that we believe we have a moral obligation to future generations to leave them a planet, a city, a region that's not polluted and damaged by carbon pollution. Here we are on this beautiful Mississippi River, the mighty Mississippi. From its waters, our city was born almost 300 years ago. It has given us fertile soil, bountiful seafood, a unique culture, and protection from storm surge as it feeds our wetlands. But it also serves as a reminder of the waters that continue to threaten us. As I mentioned, our coast plays a vital role in hurricane protection, but it is also a valuable tourism asset. New Orleans, as you know well, serves as a base camp for thousands of visitors each year who experience our unique wildlife and environment. They include sports fishermen, birders, campers, and paddlers. Those visits and visitors spend millions of dollars each year in New Orleans, and they dine at our restaurants. They stay in our hotels, and they shop at our stores. Acting on climate change and protecting our wetlands is really a jobs program in many ways. As you know, over 78,000 people depend on the tourism industry in our area. Unfortunately, our wetlands are vanishing at the astounding rate of an area of the size of a football field every hour, which means we are becoming more and more vulnerable to the effect of climate change, which includes increasingly strong storms and rising sea levels. We here in New Orleans know the devastating effects firsthand that storms and flooding can have on communities. I'm proud to report that thanks to the hard work of the people in the tourism industry, our tourism numbers have almost exceeded pre-Katrina numbers, but it wasn't easy getting to where we are today. It took a lot of hard work and dedication by people like Stephen Perry and his staff, Jeff Anding, who is with us today, and members of our cultural community like Queen Cherice, Harrison, Nelson, to bring us back from the storm.
Our group brings beauty and ritual performances to our neighborhoods, our communities. Each Mardi Gras morning, throughout the year, we work together with young people to make beautiful beaded and feathercraft creations that we call suits. I'm so blessed and honored to be speaking to you today on behalf of our beautiful city and the unique culture that makes it so special. New Orleans is indeed a unique place. It is one where culture is embedded into our way of life. From the ways we celebrate on Mardi Gras Day, the spirited send-offs we give our departed ones, and the ways we walk, talk, and eat. New Orleans is my home. This threat to our culture is very real. Let me explain to you from my perspective as someone whose very identity is engraved with the mark of New Orleans beauty and splendor. I live in the Upper Ninth Ward, the same neighborhood where Ruby Bridges went to France school. In the immediate aftermath of Hurricane Katrina, as a curator of the Mardi Gras Indian Hall of Fame, I worked with several area organizations to stabilize the lives of cultural economy workers, including the Louisiana Cultural Economy Foundation, which provided hundreds of recovery grants for artists, the Arts Council of New Orleans, the Contemporary Arts Center, and Sweet Home New Orleans, which provided millions of dollars to assist artists return home to our city, and Habitat for Humanity. The Musicians Village was also built to offer cultural workers a means of returning to the city after Katrina. The community cultivates and fosters the love of music, art, in its residents. It is serving as a birthplace for countless artists who wish to make their mark on New Orleans culture in the same way that so many artists in centuries past have helped to shape our city to what it is today. Many other organizations work together to offer hope, strength, and renewal for our city. They relied upon countless hours of time, energy, and service from the community leaders who were determined to build and rebuild New Orleans to make it a better New Orleans. These leaders saw Hurricane Katrina as a once-in-a-lifetime disaster that could be overcome by a community that desired to restore the life it once had. But even with outstanding community initiatives like this one, New Orleans still lost many of its artists who lacked the means to return. We just buried an artist who was not able to come back. He actually died in California and was brought back here to have a traditional New Orleans Mardi Gras Indian funeral. My grave fear is that the climate change will continue to bring storms to our city. I fear that as storms arrive, those who shape our culture will not be able to return. Because of that, in 2010, we had the foresight to have our children work on green suits and talk about the environment for an entire year. And they came out with green suits, and the theme was green and loving it. If nothing changes, I see a future New Orleans that lacks the unique, thriving culture. It's indescribable charm and elegance, but that is not how I choose to believe the future of our city.
Hi, everyone, and thanks for having me today. My name is Glenn. I'm a musician from right here in New Orleans, and I've loved music for as long as I can remember. I'm honored to present the local music scene here today in New Orleans again. Music is the top draw for visitors to New Orleans, and about 30,000 gigs happened just this year. That means big business. Just like almost everyone in New Orleans, my family was devastated after Hurricane Katrina, and the storm displaced my family from the city for a year and a half. When we got back, we also discovered that our home has been devastated. My passion for music comes from the love and the respect that I have for all those city musicians that have came before me, and I hope that I can continue to impact the city's culture with music for years and years to come. But I know that our coast continues to suffer at the hands of climate change. So with our local musicians, I do support President Obama's climate change initiatives to support the storm, the future of the storms that will not cause us to lose any more of our city's legends. I would now like to introduce Miss Helene O'Brien. Thanks.
Good morning. So my name is Helene O'Brien. I'm the president of the Service Employees International Union here in Louisiana. We represent workers in the service industry. Food service workers, custodial workers, grass cutting, childcare, street cleaning. They are among the 47% of full-time year-round workers in the New Orleans area who earn less than $35,000 a year. Our members are part of the 37% of New Orleans households that live in asset poverty. No savings, little access to credit or insurance. It takes months or years for our members' families to recover from increasingly dangerous storms and hurricanes. like Mardi Gras Indian Queen Cherice Harrison Nelson and Chef Tommy and musician Glenn Hall, and like the Mardi Gras World Tour Guides here with us, and Chef Michael Ragua from Antoine's Restaurant, Chef Renee and Chef Ben from Renee Bistro, and Chef Noah Lindsley from Fleur de Lis Catering. Our workers are vulnerable, and yet they are the backbone of our economy. And all of our workers depend on a successful and healthy tourism industry to feed their families and put roofs over their heads. And that is why it is important to act now on climate change. Not only is it in our own best interests, but we have a moral obligation to future generations to leave them a planet that is not polluted and damaged by carbon pollution. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Tom DiGiovanni. I'm the chef at Armand's Restaurant. I'm here today to discuss with you perhaps one of New Orleans' most well-known attributes, its fantastic cuisine. Millions of people flock to the city each year simply because of their intrigue for the flavors of New Orleans. It is unlike any other cuisine that you'll find in the United States or the Western Hemisphere. Our food is an integral part of our unique culture. I'm sure many of you heard the saying, food brings people together. Well, I'm here to tell you that nowhere else is that truer than in New Orleans. One visit to any of our local restaurants to demonstrate how a half-dozen charbroiled oysters or an excellent bowl of gumbo can spark a conversation among complete strangers. Our local food and cuisine is built on what we find around us. From the abundant and flavorful seafood that we find in the Gulf to the local produce that our farmers work hard each day to provide to the restaurants and groceries around the area which fuel our culture and economy. Here in Louisiana, our commercial fishing industry is worth $272.9 million. And since 95% of all marine life found in the Gulf of Mexico spends the majority of its life cycle in Louisiana coastal wetlands. Protecting our coast from the harmful effects of climate change is essential if New Orleans cuisine is to remain the strong cultural and economic force that it is today. As someone who understands the value of New Orleans cuisine, it is the utmost cultural and economic importance. I urge you to join me and President Obama to improve the future of climate change. His plan is taking action to ensure what we can do to protect our community from extreme storms and take action on a national level to address the causes of climate change. It's action that I can stand behind, and it's action that I know will support our community as we continue to grow and thrive.
Again, thank you for being with us this morning in a very warm day in New Orleans to ask you to act on climate change. Take the pledge that you will act as well. We are acting. I will act. Let's all act on climate change. It's a commonsensical approach. It is about opening your minds to what's happening, being realistic, and saying we can do something about it, but we have to be in the game to do it. This outstanding rig behind us will be leaving at about 10 after 12 as it makes its way around the country. From here it goes up to Vicksburg.
Tourism in New Orleans touches so many different areas. It touches the food, the seafood, of course. It touches wildlife tourism. And those are just two areas that are directly affected by a healthy environment. And if we don't take care of the things that feed those assets, we won't have those assets around. So it's a jobs program, pure and simple. We need to do our homework to make sure that we can maintain those jobs and increase those jobs for the future.
How can we make it live in our community? How can we make it live in the lives of children in a real, meaningful way, not just a pie in the sky kind of way, but small things that we all can do, recycling, all those things that create a smaller carbon footprint for all humans.